Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Rachel.
And we are Picture the Scene Podcast, a true crime podcast aiming to put you, the listener, at the scene of the crime. We bring you a new episode on a weekly basis, mainly focusing on lesser known crimes from the UK and Ireland. However, at times, we expand into cases from anywhere in the world and or ones that are well known. As we are a true crime podcast, listener caution is always advised, although unless we go off on a crazy tangent, there should be no descriptions of violence, abuse or death in this one. But don't turn off, hopefully you'll still enjoy it anyway. Now, if you like what you hear, please do follow us on whatever social media platform you prefer, along with wherever you listen. And if you do have the capability, give us a rating and review as well. It means the world to us and it really does help us. If you like us that much that you want to support us, you can do so for less than the price of a cup of tea or coffee on Patreon. We release bonus content every month and have plans for additional content very soon.
There you go.
Yes, there you go indeed.
The sales speech, terms and conditions part is over, guys.
It is, it's almost over. The links to our social medias and Patreon can be found in the show notes, or visit patreon.com//scenepod. That's patreon.com/SCENEPOD. Now the terms and conditions are over. Rachel, how have you been? What's new in your life?
Yeah, I've been good, thanks. And I'm sorry for taking the mick there. I didn't mean to, but no, there's obviously a lot of like show content that we want to cover at the start of the episodes. It seemed like a lot there, so didn't mean to take the mick.
It just seemed like a lot, yeah.
But yeah, all good, thanks, Andrew. How have you been?
I've been sparkling. Do you know what happened last night?
Go on.
Last night, it was that windy that our gas-fired barbecue, so quite heavy, blew over.
No.
And I was even struggling to pick up this morning. I was like, but the wheelie bins, which were next to it, didn't blow over. Our listeners don't want to hear this, do they? I was just thinking, how can something that weighs a ton blow over, but the wheelie bins don't? Anyway.
Oh, mind blown. Is your gas barbecue okay? And was your toasty maker anywhere near it?
No, we've not had a decent toast.
Breville's okay, right?
We've not had a Breville conversation in ages, have we?
We've not.
Yeah, I've been cheating on it recently. I've been making my toasties in the pan.
In the pan.
Yes. Dropping
a bombshell like that.
Old
Luckily,
school.
we're not hosting a cookery podcast, though, so let's get into it.
Yes. So, our story today talks about a lady who seems to spend a lot of her life ready and waiting.
Hang on a minute. You haven't asked me the key question.
No, hang on a minute. Let me get to my point.
Okay.
As we can tell, Rachel is eager to get ready and going. She won't let me talk about cooking. So, our story today talks about a lady who seemed to spend a lot of her life ready and waiting. So I ask you this, Rachel. Are you ready for some true crime?
Clearly, I'm too ready. Yes, I definitely am.
So, if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like you to relax. Close your eyes and picture the scene. Today, I'd like to take us to the 27th of February, 2022, which was a Sunday. And I'd like to take us to the morning of that Sunday, almost a year ago, and we're going to the village of Santa Barbara, which is a small village of around 4,000 people in the Tarragona province, which is in the eastern part of Spain, and it's in Catalonia. It was around 14 degrees Celsius in the morning on this sleepy Sunday, which is about 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're in the morning because as anyone who lives or have lived in a warm country in the past, you know the best time to do things is either early-ish or late in the day, because when it gets too hot, it's simply too hot to do anything. Now, you know the old saying, Rachel, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun, which Rudyard Kipling said. It's a wise saying. So if you have any sense, you never go out in the baking sun, do you?
No, you don't. But I also love the fact that you just addressed the listeners by saying, you'd be mad to, we all know you don't steal anything in the middle of the day. You'd steal things in the early morning or the early evening. Just a wild comment to make to our listeners who probably don't steal things.
No, I didn't say steal, did I? But anyway.
Sorry.
But even the police, if you look into it, when the police raid someone's house, unless it's like urgent, they always do it early in the morning in England anyway, or at tea time.
At tea time.
No, seriously. I asked the policeman once why they did this, and he said to me, it's for safety reasons, because early in the morning people are asleep, and at tea time, dinner time if you're in the south of England, then people are either preparing a meal or sitting down for a meal, so they're less likely to be able to attack back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know a couple of podcasts and shows that I've listened to and watched have always addressed like the early morning thing, because you are catching them completely off guard. You can even travel to the property without people, being alerted, because obviously you're not on like the blues and twos. But the tea time one is a really good point, and something I've never considered, that people are less likely to be armed or even aware, because you are so focused in your household, whether you are cooking for yourself or whether you're cooking for a number of people, you're just focused on what's for dinner and getting it like plated up and ready, aren't you? You're not potentially like worried about anything else, which might be, when the feds are going to come and bust down your door and handcuff you.
Exactly, and as we know, listeners, Rachel is down with the people. I don't even know the right term, because she uses the term feds when the feds are going to come and get you.
Oh, sorry, I've clearly watched too many like American shows and dramas.
That's what British youth say about the police. They call them feds.
Oh, do they?
Maybe you're a hoodlum. But anyway, let's go back to Spain, shall we? And let me introduce you to Antoinetta Arguello, or Marie Antoinette, as a few people who knew her by. She was a 47-year-old woman from Italy, and she knew that it would be getting too warm later on in the day to walk her 2 dogs. So off she took them, leaving her apartment and heading towards some waste ground near to where she lived to exercise them and let them do their business. So
thanks for clarifying.
That's okay. As she was doing what she did every morning, probably, although I am guessing here because I didn't watch her, she was probably thinking about a day ahead. All of a sudden, 3 cars sped toward her, pulled up, and several members of the Spanish Guardia Civil pulled up. That's the Spanish police, for those that don't know. And they quickly pounced on her, arresting her.
My God.
Yeah.
Shit your pants, wouldn't you?
And she looked a little bit bamboozled.
Did she get to take the dog in the police van?
I don't know where she took the dogs, but she didn't give up a fight. I've seen a video of it when they arrested her. She didn't give up a fight. And it looked like she had a quiet acceptance of her fate as they put the handcuffs on her hands. Hands, as you just mentioned, that were still holding the 2 leads of her 2 dogs. And both dogs, bless them, they were just waiting patiently for the owner to give them an indication of what would happen next. They've just stood there waiting, yeah. With the Spanish police were 2 British people, a man and a woman, and they both worked for the British government, and they were with the Spanish police as Antoinetta was led towards one of the police cars to go to the police station.
Interesting.
And they were there because the person they had arrested was labelled, up until that very moment, the most wanted woman in the UK.
Oh, wow. I now feel bad for feeling sorry for her, because there was, I think it might have been the dogs. The dogs definitely like played on my heartstrings. I was like, why this poor woman? But
exactly.
Okay, right. Did not realise she was the most wanted woman in the UK at the time.
Why are these nasty feds picking this woman up to walking a dog in Spain? Exactly.
Yeah.
So, do you know who she is, Rachel? And if you don't, can you guess why she was the most wanted woman in the UK?
No, I don't know who she is. And can I guess why she's the most wanted woman in the UK? You said there wasn't going to be any blood and gut unless we went off on a tangent today. So I'm guessing, there was some sort of white collar crime here that you have definitely alluded to. So what's she done? Has she been stealing artwork? I'm going to go artwork.
Okay.
Theft.
Well, before I tell you what she has done, let me tell you that she wasn't an Italian national called Antoinetta Arguello. That was just some fake ID that she had been using for the previous 7 years while living in Spain.
Interesting.
Exactly. Her real name was Sarah Panitzke, who was from York in the north of England.
Oh, wow. I wonder whether she had like a really thick Yorkshire. Oh, York. Oh, no.
Yeah, York. That's the
Oh,
posh part of
maybe a
Yorkshire.
really posh. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a really posh accent then. Okay.
She had been on the run since 2013, since she was found guilty and sentenced in her absence after going on the run during one of her court trials. In her absence, she had been sentenced to an 8-year prison sentence, and in 2016, the potential of another 9 years would be added if she didn't pay back £2.4 million that the courts had determined she'd received as proceeds from crime.
OMG.
Now, she had to repay the money within 3 months of the order in 2016 for her to do so, but as she was on the run, she couldn't do so. So she
she wasn't going to arrange a bank transfer and give away her location, was she?
Exactly. So she was now facing 17 years in prison. It was also worth noting that the interest charged on what she owed was £538 a day, meaning that in May of last year, the amount had rose to £3.4 million.
Oh, that's daylight robbery. Can I just clarify as well? And I'm probably going to regret saying this later when I find out what she's done, because you're probably going to pull on some more heartstrings. But 17 years for whatever she has done, unless she has, like killed people, that's a lot. That's a lot of time versus, the likes of your like real kind of like dark, nasty criminals. And not saying that she's not a criminal because I haven't found out why yet, but like if you compare to like murder or child abuse or people that are like assault, battery, and all of the other kind of awful things that we cover on this podcast, like 17 years is a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot. I think it's because when they do these orders to pay back money, it gets higher the more people have to pay back. So that's why, like, don't forget, like 9 years of that was just if she didn't pay back. So in theory, if she'd have paid it back, she wouldn't have had those 9 years, and so she'd have had 8 and out in maybe 4 or 5 years.
The courts love to make examples of people that are, these kind of white collar criminals, though, don't they? Because they see it as really, taking advantage, depending what environment this woman has worked in. Maybe she's worked in a gallery, for instance, if she has stolen art, or in a bank if she is a fraudster, and all of these things. Like they just make an example to kind of teach other people a lesson. But yeah, I just feel like comparatively, it's quite
Well, let's see then.
extreme,
So
isn't it?
I'm going to get on in a few minutes as to what crime or crimes
Okay.
she had committed. But before I do so, the observant listeners out there, of which Rachel isn't one, will notice that she had been on the run since 2013. Yet had only been using her fake ID since 2015.
Ooh.
So what about the first 2 years of her time spent evading the police? Well, in those 2 years, she didn't use any fake ID. She simply didn't do anything that would require her to need ID. She would hardly leave her apartment that she had, depending on her husband, who visited her at the weekend with fresh supplies. Wow. So what changed in 2015 was the fact that she'd been traced by the British and Spanish authorities to the town of Olivia in the province of Barcelona in Spain. But as she was under surveillance, the police took too long to prepare her to arrest her, and she noticed them watching her. Now, in a true Hollywood-style plotline, she managed to alter her identity enough by wearing a fake wig and whatnot, and she simply walked straight past the people watching her and escaped.
Wow, okay.
So this may sound like I'm stretching the truth here to make it sound good, but the Guardia Civil, they actually admitted this. They admitted their mistake in 2015. Now, I put in here, do you need a quote, or do you think you can take my word from it?
I'll take your word for it. I know you're trustworthy.
Good, because I hadn't wrote a quote down. But
there is in that case, I want a quote.
There is quotes out there if you Google it. So what her escape did do, though, was to focus the police's attention on catching her even more. They put more effort and resources into it, but as she had broken all physical contact with family or friends since that date, they struggled to find her. So who was Sarah? How did she end up in Spain with a false Italian ID? Well, Sarah was born in Yorkshire and spent her childhood growing up in the beautiful village of S2E13, near York in Yorkshire. Her family were well off, with locals reporting their driveway always had Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes and the like.
Wow.
And they lived in a large detached house.
Nice.
She was the oldest of 2 children. Her parents, Leo and Pauline, had ensured they had the best start to life by sending their children to St. Peter's School in York, which was founded in 627 and is the 3rd oldest school in the world, with fees being as high as £36,500 per year.
I bet like most graduates in that school are famous people or like esteemed like colleagues and like big, companies, or they've gone on to like achieve great things. I bet Sarah might be the only most wanted woman in Britain on their roster.
Quite possible. I don't think she'll get invited back to reunion, but
No.
Sarah's mother was a stay-at-home mom, while her father was described as a successful property developer and insurance broker. He was what he described as a character, often describing himself as a pensions advisor to whomever would talk to him, as he was a permanent fixture in their local pub, the Black Bull, buying anyone who wanted one a drink.
Oh, wow.
Now, Sarah was an exceptionally bright child, studying 10 GCSEs and 3 A-levels, her school noting that she was an outstanding debater, but she also had a rebellious streak. So much so that her parents built a bar at the end of their garden with a TV and pool table in it to keep her at home so she could invite her friends around. But that didn't stop her going out and carry on drinking while she was still underage outside of her home.
Yeah, but as well, like, what kid wouldn't do that? When would this be? Sorry, the 90s?
Yes, roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So, I can't imagine there'd be a lot of children that didn't do that.
But imagine your parents saying, okay, I'm going to build you a bar and a pool
Yeah. Oh,
table
no,
and
definitely. That is extreme. But yeah, they're still going to want to fit in with the other kids that don't have parents that can build them bars, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, her childhood summers would be spent in Spain, where her parents had a second home, and this is when, and this is when she developed her love of Spain and all things Spanish. So much so that when she left school, she studied Spanish at degree level, with her dream one day to own a hotel in Spain.
Oh, wow.
Her life changed somewhat, though, when she was 19 in 1993, when her father was arrested and subsequently found guilty of and was sentenced to 4 years in prison for property fraud.
Do you know what? When you said he described himself as a pensions advisor, I was going to say something, but then I thought, no, Rachel, don't be disrespectful. But yeah, no, there's just something about his character, the way you were describing that, he described himself as a pensions advisor. And I'm thinking, Ponzi scheme, potentially, like he's got going on in the background. And as well, like buying everyone a drink, just trying to keep on the good side of people. But yeah.
So he was caught selling council houses too early. So in the UK, for those people out of the UK, when you're in social housing, after a certain number of years, you can buy your property at a reduced price, with the only caveat being that if you sold it before a certain number of years had passed, you had to pay the difference of what you bought it at and what the market value was back to the council.
Yep.
So he would help people buy their council house and then sell it on way too early for a profit, keeping a cut of the profit and fixing it so no one had to give the council anything.
Oh, wow.
She would describe the time in diaries that would come out later and letters that her father was in prison as the worst time of her life, though I imagine, and only guessing here, that once she got arrested herself, that changed. That wasn't her worst time of her life anymore.
Possibly. Maybe, oh no, I was going to say maybe she wanted to get arrested to go and visit Daddy, but he'd have been well out by then. He only got 4 years, didn't he?
Yeah. So when she finished her degree, she studied for a master's degree in business management at a university in Barcelona, again working towards the goal of owning a hotel in Spain. She spent the next few years in Spain volunteering in local charities and working for property rental companies, learning French and Catalan fluently while she did.
Nice.
It was here that she fell into the criminal world. So let's stop this suspense, shall we? I'll tell you why she was arrested, and then go back to how she got up to that point of being arrested and how she escaped justice. So Sarah was arrested as playing a key part in a £1 billion international money laundering scheme. Specifically, she would take part in what is called missing trader intra-community fraud. Now, missing trader intra-community fraud, or MITC as I refer it from here on in, so I don't tongue-tie myself, is estimated to cost European countries alone €50 billion a year in lost taxes. Now, MITC is when sophisticated and organised criminals create a structure of linked companies in different countries to take advantage of how VAT, which is value added tax, is collected and dealt with differently in different locations.
That's so naughty. They're finding loopholes and like what? No, I'll let you carry on. Sorry.
So what a gang of criminals, or I have to say a wad of criminals, as Bailey from True Crime B&B would describe them as.
What? Like it.
I love that expression. Would do, they'd buy mobile phones in various countries in the EU and Dubai and export them to the UK. Thus, by exporting them, they could claim the VAT back in the countries they originally bought them in, and then they would sell them in the UK, charging customers for VAT, plus getting any profit as well. But then the companies who imported them would disappear a few months later, never actually paying any tax, including the old VAT, to the British revenue.
Yeah. So we're taking a hit on both sides.
They would then rinse and repeat this. This type of fraud is also known as carousel fraud, for anyone that wants to Google and get more details on it. These days, while it is still committed with physical goods, such as mobile phones or precious metals, it's also expanded into the environmental and energy sectors.
Yeah. They're just like fleecing, and they continuously develop as well with different products and services, so that, not only can the people that are tracking these types of fraud, keep on top of them, but so that customers aren't like aware to keep an eye out and therefore fall for the scams or, for the innocent like sale or purchase. And that's the thing, it's not just these companies that are affected by this. When these people that buy these goods, when they're located, the items are seized. So they've unwillingly.
No, I don't think.
A lot of the time they can be seized by the police.
Oh, I guess it could be, yeah.
Yeah, so from my experience when I used to work in the bank, a lot of the goods are seized. So then the customers that are completely unknowingly participating are also punished, not just the corporate. Everyone in the chain is disrupted.
I forgot you used to work in a bank, so yeah, you probably know all about this type of crime, don't you?
Not all about it, absolutely not, and definitely not at a complex level, but yeah, in general, and all sorts of different types of fraud that are, that these criminals take advantage of. But these cases are really complex. So, are you going to go on to tell us how this woman got involved in it? Because it can't just be her on her own. These are big teams, or what did you call them? Wads
of criminals, yes.
Yeah.
So how did Sarah, this well-spoken, well-connected woman from an upper middle class family, get drawn into an international criminal gang? Well, it's due to those connections that she got exposure in the first place, as she met Jeffrey Winston Johnson. Now, Jeffrey was what we'd loosely know as a criminal gang leader, a career criminal who was successful. He travelled Europe and formed a gang of intelligent people who each didn't know each other, but together would have the skills to pull this fraud off. This sounds like Ocean's 11 to me, but it was real. So skilled was he at keeping them all apart that when everyone was arrested, as they did arrest all in the gang, the police were still unable to link together how each of them could work without communicating with each other in silo.
Yeah.
He would be arrested, but amusingly, I probably shouldn't say amusingly, he would also abscond. being sentenced in his absence to 24 years originally. And in 2016, he was given a confiscation order, the same as Sarah's, but he was ordered to repay £109 million. If he didn't within 3 months, he'd have to serve an additional 14 years in prison. So you're talking like possible 38 years in prison here.
Yeah, and I get it. That's, the context, like the volume of money that he was responsible for laundering versus Sarah, in context puts those two different sentences, together. But you're then putting, and I'm sorry to keep on reverting to this, but you're then putting a price on life.
Yes.
Because they are very very different sentences for I appreciate they're different crimes, but I mean, you can't put a value on someone's life that's been taken too soon, right?
No, you can't. No. He would be caught in 2017 when he travelled to Dubai from Kenya on a fake British passport, and the Dubai authorities detected this and arrested him. He was 74 when he was arrested in 2017 in Dubai, and I couldn't find out if he paid the money back or not. But if he didn't, even considering he could only serve half, potentially, of his sentence, that's 18 years, so he'd be 92 when he got out. So a high chance...
If he got out.
Yeah, a high chance he's going to die in prison, or has already died in prison. So you can see why he went on the run. But back to Sarah, because we're talking about Sarah today.
Yeah.
Sarah's role in this was to move the money about between countries so it could never be found, which she did well, given that even when arrested, the police or tax officers never found any of it. When she was arrested, when she was in the UK, all members of the gang would be arrested at the same time. Her, Jeffrey, and 16 others. The gang itself would be sentenced to 135 years in total, so that includes the 8 years Sarah got and the 24 that Jeffrey got, but it doesn't include any additional for repayments. The gang would be ordered to pay back, in total, a few £100 million. So how did she get caught and then manage to escape? Well, the catching part is not that exciting. After the tax office realised that they'd lost in the hundreds of millions of pounds, they spent months investigating the fake companies, and that's how they identified the 18 people in total. They put them under surveillance and arrested them all at once. They do believe that the reason they couldn't link how the gang communicated with each other is that there was one extra member who was on the European mainland, who they never identified and could never arrest. But that was just a theory because they had no proof that this person existed.
That he is always yeah, he or she, sorry, is always looking over their shoulder though.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. Sarah was by this time married to a Spanish man and would regularly travel between Spain and the UK. So when she was arrested the first time, the British authorities made one big mistake. When she was bailed, they forgot to ask her to surrender her passport.
Oh my God, the basics.
Yeah, so given she had lived in Spain for years, she spoke the language and had a Spanish husband, she simply got on a plane and disappeared. She must have been so happy about that. Like, why have they not asked me for my passport? Let's book a plane.
I know, that's the first thought, isn't it? And yeah. Like when you're at a checkout and they're like scanning the goods and they don't scan something properly and you're like, oh my God. Do you think, oh, just tell them before they notice so you don't look like you're trying to get away with it or whatever. But I'm sure when she was booking out, if you like, and they're going through the tick list, that her mind's in overdrive thinking, why haven't they asked me for my passport?
Yeah, exactly. So after she had been arrested, she appealed not to be extradited back to the UK, stating that she should be allowed to serve her time in a Spanish prison, given her ties to Spain, and also that her husband had cancer, was not expected to live until she was released, and would be unable to travel back to the UK to visit her due to his illness. She also argued that as the crime would have been spent under Spanish law, she therefore also shouldn't be deported back to the UK, as you can usually only be deported if the crime exists in a country you've been deported from.
Oh.
So I'm not sure how she thought that would work, as she was arguing about her crime being spent, not being invalid. So her request to serve her time in a Spanish jail was rejected by a Spanish judge.
Wow.
And she travelled back to the UK to serve her time. After she was arrested, she would say that she had to spend most of the years in hiding, and it was akin to a prison sentence anyway. And probably worse because she couldn't see her family, so she shouldn't have to serve it again.
Well, you know what though? You haven't been in prison. So you can say it was like being in prison, but you haven't been in prison.
Yes. She says she regretted not being able to see her father before he died or go to his funeral because he'd told her he'd rather not see her than know she'd been arrested because of him. So she stayed away.
So she kept in touch with him then?
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, she must have done.
Unless he made like some sort of public appeal.
No.
Not appeal, but unless he kind of like made something public on an open profile somewhere that said, if my daughter out there is reading this, please do not ever get in touch with me.
No, publicly, all her family said that they had cut ties off with her.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because of the crimes, and they didn't want to be associated with her. But I never put those two together. So yeah, obviously that wasn't true. She also complained, and you'll probably lose a little sympathy here, Rachel, that she was running out of money towards the end. So she could no longer afford the expensive gin that she used in the gin and tonics, and had to start buying and drinking the cheap gin.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't expecting you to say that she couldn't afford the gin.
So yeah, we have to buy the Tesco value stuff rather than £100 a bottle. It's
brutality.
Terrible, isn't it?
Yes. Send me to prison now.
Exactly. So Rachel, I can't really spend the end focusing on the victim, as the victim is ultimately the British government and anyone who would benefit from tax money being spent. But what did you think of that one? A bit of a change from murder and violence.
Yeah, definitely. And really interesting case. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing she's still alive.
Yes.
Staying out the rest of her life, or, the best parts of her life, if you like, in prison. And it probably like a little sad that she won't see her husband again. That can't sit well with her. But then you counter argue that with, well, you continued, to be on the run, and you could have, for argument's sake, have repaid the money, had your prison sentence, and be out now, spending his last days with him. But it is what it is. So I don't necessarily feel sorry for her. But no, really interesting case.
Yeah, that's it. If she wouldn't have ran away, and then she would have paid the money back, she would have been out already.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like, you can't, in these instances, I think it's human nature to feel like guilty and, sad about the dogs that she was walking when she got like arrested by the feds. And, sad about the fact that her husband lives out the rest of his life without her by his side. But actually, fundamentally, she's a criminal. She's stolen and, enjoyed the proceeds of hundreds of thousands of pounds, maybe not millions, her herself. But yeah, she's gonna have to just suffer the consequences of that, and yeah, deal with it.
And if you notice, she says that she couldn't afford to buy expensive gin, so I'm figuring she probably can't afford to pay back over £3 million. So she's going to have to spend that extra time in prison.
Well, that's the thing, and you argue, did she ever actually have that £3 million, like, or was she paying people off to hide her identity, protect the money, for instance? There is so many other people that are involved in these circles with the individuals that are the criminals, and they take a cut, Yeah,
and plus they caught them after a couple of years, so she would have been spending money as they went along, not like just putting it all in a bank.
Yeah, exactly. It's really easy to think, oh, well, she's had this much money for this much time. But in actual fact, even just hiding the money, if it's not in a physical bank account, if she's also had it in, wads of cash, she'll be paying somebody to, break that down into smaller denominations so that she can spend it in the local shop and things like that.
Exactly.
It's interesting, and I do really like these cases because I've seen the other side of things, and the victims kind of reporting the crime in the bank for the period of time I worked there. So it is interesting, and I might look at a case in future and step away from the brutality um, for the white collar.
Why not? It's a nice palate cleanser every now and again, isn't it? And
I
a
know, and to be
moose
honest,
boost.
and a mood boost, yeah, cleanse the palate. But to be honest as well, you'd brought us two pretty brutal cases on the bounce. So it was definitely time for something that didn't want to make me cry.
Exactly. So this has been season 2, episode 13, called Catch Me If You Can. And for one last time, if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like all of you to relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. You have a family. You strive to work hard. You save. You cut costs so you can send your children to private school, so they can get the best start in life. But can you be certain what their future is really going to be like? So thank you all, and until next time, watch out for those wads of criminals.
And the feds at dinner
And the
time.
feds, yes. Thank you all, goodbye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.